activities of the colonialists to confiscate the assets of the granddaughters and sons of those who practiced dehumanizing activities.
Very good. Thank you very much. You know, Comrade Lisafri, my elder here, Rugarama, brings a very important issue, and it reminds me, you see, right now, Algeria is talking about the history, long time ago, what happened to us, and how they needed to compensate us so that we can live with dignity, like any other. But Comrade Rugarama, Trump recently...
No, but can I say something about that?
Hmm?
Can I say something about that?
About Trump?
Algeria.
I'm coming. I wanted to combine it with what Trump is doing of late. Trump, South African is going to parliament in a civil manner to ask that you stole 114 years ago, you killed our people, our relatives. After killing them, you stole their land. But 114 years later, some of that loot, you have not utilized it. You have stolen 100 acres of land from our great-grandparents. You have only used 10 acres. Let us use the law to reclaim the balance. Trump is saying, this is by practicing, wait what? The Boers.
Discrimination, that
yes.
the blacks are discriminating
The
the
whites.
whites.
Yes.
So in other words, he's referring to what we would call racial discrimination.
Yes.
Now that is impossible. Just a comment, that is impossible. How?
It's impossible.
Racial discrimination can only happen in a situation whereby one race is economically more empowered than the other. That, for you to be able to discriminate, you discriminate me on what? Because you must discriminate me on accessibility, access to resources. So how does the weak discriminate the strong
the rich
on accessing resources?
So this is the argument I was bringing, that Trump is in this 21st century practicing what was practiced those so many centuries ago, but it's still with us in Trump's head, and the African continent is taking it lightly. We are taking it to be a South African issue, because when you go to South Africa, up to now, there is a big part of South Africa, in Africa, where blacks are not supposed to live in.
Yes.
Free your mind now. Be part of the People's Pan-African Parliament. The Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
The Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Emperor Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
King of the kings.
Emperor. Hey.
The emperor.
Welcome to the edition of the Pan-African Pyramid show here with my usual suspect, Comrade Thomas Lisafri, aka Mutatina. Thomas, I wanted to say hi to our viewers.
Hello to everyone. Thank you again for having me here. We're going to explore what's happening on the continent this week, and you will see there's some juicy news.
Some
good news.
Greet us in some French, man.
Bonjour. J'espère que l'Afrique va bien. En tout cas, on travaille ensemble pour qu'elle aille mieux.
You know, I was in Burkina Faso. I had started learning French.
Yeah, this one. Even his laptop speaks to him in French now.
Lisafre is a senior researcher, senior journalist, and a lecturer, but also is a recipient of the Pan-African Pyramid Global Award Class of 2024, together with my elder here, Comrade Daniel Garama Karukiko. Daniel Garama Karukiko is international civil rights lawyer. He's the chairman of Pan-African Movement Uganda chapter, but he's also a recipient of the Pan-African Pyramid Global Award Class of 2024. Welcome, my elder.
Many thanks to you, Comrade Irumba, our speaker, and salutations to my brother, Comrade Rusafari. Rutatina, I see you have given him Mutatina. it is
13
the
and
same.
13 are different. They're the same.
The same. And a very good morning, afternoon, and evening, depending on where you are watching us from, to our esteemed viewers and fellow thinkers on this beautiful platform. I'm glad I've been away for about 2 weeks now, but I'm glad I'm back. This is home, and we welcome your feedback, your views. It is always a pleasure being here.
Since you're a lawyer, we can say we've been holding a brief for you. Since you're a lawyer.
Absolutely, with my instructions.
We've been holding a brief. You've been holding a brief for you.
Briefcase, even.
Not the briefcase. This one.
And briefcase. Full of documents. They like papers.
Okay, comrades. I will start with the comrade Daniel Garama Karuchiko, who has been away for a while, and we've been holding a brief for him. I want us to discuss a few things. Number one is there has been a coup d'etat in Guinea-Bissau. You are aware?
Yes, sir.
Let's begin from there. What do you think? What do you make of it? Is it a people-centered revolution? Is it a revolution being engineered by the colonialists who want actually those resources? Or this one is actually going to protect those countries and the citizens' resources?
The coups, the period of coups on the African continent is not a new phenomenon. We all remember vividly so, especially after the 1963 Organization of African Unity Conference in Addis Ababa, where roughly 25 to 27 then liberated countries converged with the likes of the Osejefo, Kwame Nkrumah, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, Abdul Gamar, Dassa, the Ben Bera, Olympiokos, and it was narrowly missed by Emir Patrice Lumumba, him having been assassinated by the combination of Belgium and CIA. The period immediately thereafter, especially in the late 60s and the early 70s, was a period of coups and assassinations on the African continent, and the reason was that we had a new crop of leaders who were against the colonial legacy, and they were all out to dismantle the structure that had been constructed by the colonialists. The likes of Osejefo, Kwame Nkrumah, the likes of the Thomas Sankara, Olympiokos, Abdul Gamara, Nassa, Ben Bera, to mention but a few, were either destabilized in their respective countries by way of assassination or exiling. It was not until they put the stooges who could not think beyond their noses that Africa seemed to have gained some bit of stability, and we thought that therefore the colonialists, the imperialists then was comfortable. The only explanation is there is that when he installed his own puppets, the likes of Mobutu, Seko, Wazabanga, and the like, he knew that he had set the stage, like rewinding the clock back to the colonial days, because then he was ensuring that what he had set in place, that is the colonialist, what he had set in place was going to flow like it was before. Later, the so-called period of stability was no stability because we were under capture. What we are experiencing when we had the likes of Paulo Kagame, the likes of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, coming onto stage, and a few others who were professing what looked like socialism. It was not long before the imperialist again reintroduced himself through the means of the Bretton Woods institutions by crippling the wings of those so-called countries that had come up to kind of depart from the capitalistic tendencies. To the extent that when we saw the countries of Mali, countries of Burkina Faso, countries of that whole strip, as we know it, when they came with the revival of Amilcar Cabral style. And we were like, I think this now is the rebirth of the true African continent, Pan-African continent that Osejefo Kwame Nkrumah actually preached about. So therefore, and of course we know what is happening. The many attempts that have been made on the life of the likes of our brother in Burkina Faso, with the French, Ibrahim Traoré. The French have made a number of attempts on his life. Therefore,
These ones.
when you see he left them, he left
He's
them.
with us now.
we speak about
He
that.
resembles them in color, but he has got nothing to do with their ideology.
Keep the career.
Therefore, when we see what any new attempt now, and we saw it coming, by the way, just like the Sahel region that I was talking about, is part of the big the revival of bringing back the African continent. When you look at this very latest now coup, it is also to reinforce the narrative that Africa is reclaiming herself. Kaisame, the South African civil rights activist and thinker, one time wrote a paper which he presented in one of the universities in Europe, and it was rediscovering Africa, rediscovering herself. From the time when Africa was colonized, throughout the period when we thought that we had reclaimed our independence and we were now independent countries, during now the time of imperialism, Africa has been searching for self-reclamation, if I may use such a word.
Determination.
Because we have not fully reclaimed Africa's integrity, Africa's special position on the global stage, we continuously try to get back ourselves through such things as coups. This particular coup is not the first of its kind, and that's why I had to give the background of coups, which in actual sense were organic, and they are also coups which are engineered by imperialism because they are not comfortable with what is obtaining in some of these countries. If the macroeconomic policies of the Bretton Woods institutions are not properly instituted in some of the African countries and elsewhere, Asia, there will always be, even in Latin America, there will always be an attempt by the big boys, the so-called big boys, like United States of America, Britain, France, call it the Western Europe and America, to interfere by way of economic sabotage and outright deployment of the cabals to make sure that they eliminate the regime like they are trying to do now in Venezuela, like they did in majority parts of Latin America, like they are destabilizing Haiti, like they did when Robert Mugabe refused to cede land and other forms of power in Zimbabwe, like they are trying to bulldoze South Africa, the Ramaphosa, like they are now trying to destabilize Botswana, because the new regime in Botswana is questioning the establishment, I mean the stay of the military base in Botswana. So therefore, the current coup that we are talking about is one of a cycle of the coups that we have been experiencing, and us, from the Pan-African point of view, we take it that this is now to reclaim once again the true image of Africa, and we hope that it is not by any means engineered by imperialism, whereby they want to recapture what they have been steadily losing on the African continent.
Thank you so much, comrade.
I want to bounce back on that because I think it's very key. You see, my colleagues, he always refer to history and an analysis of the history, right? Analytical history. I want to add to this. I want to add some details to the case that he just presented, because when we think of coup in Burkina Faso, we think of 2025, right? What we should know is that the very first coup in Guinea-Bissau. The very first coup that happened in Guinea-Bissau happened on 20th of January 1973, when Guinea-Bissau became independent in 74. So even before Guinea-Bissau was independent, Amilcar Cabral, the revolutionary leader of PAIGC, the freedom fighters that were fighting for the liberation of his people, got killed in Conakry, not even in his own country, right? And we know that because we know a lot of details about these assassinations because he was in a meeting with Joaquim Chissano, that would later become president of Mozambique in the 80s, in the 90s even. So on 20th of January 1973, Amilcar Cabral, one of the best freedom fighters of his generation, if not the best, many have concluded that he was definitely in the top 3 or top 4, because before even his country was liberated, he was already implementing a transformation for his people. So he was a civil engineer specialized in farming, and he was like developing a lot of new techniques for farming so he can feed the people. And so he liberated space, he liberated state in Guinea-Bissau, and the colonialists hated it. So they sent their army full on, and they sent their secret service, right? Amilcar Cabral is on that Saturday of 20 January 1973, Amilcar Cabral is in the Poland embassy. He's speaking with all the leaders of the revolutionary leaders of the continent. They're having meetings in Portuguese language because they speak Portuguese with people of Mozambique, people of Angola, people of Cabo Verde. They sit together to plan and organize the end of the Portuguese Empire that has been in Guinea-Bissau since 400 years, right? At the very same time, the French Secret Service called SDEC and the Portuguese Secret Service called PID, right? They come to the conclusion that if Amilcar Cabral seized power, all West Africa might turn toward his model, because his success in agriculture and farming has been astonishing. The man is leading his country since 1960, but his country is going to be independent in 1974. If you remember the Kenyatta, the Kwame Nkrumah, they were all, not Lumumba, but they were all in jail. Yeah, Lumumba also was in jail. They were all jailed before. So they passed their time in jail, then independence come, then they come out. Amilcar Cabral never got caught. So he was in the bush organizing the freedom fighters. Amilcar Cabral leave this meeting, he arrived at his home, and at his home he found a commando of 6 people killing him. He got shot in front of his house in Conakry, less than a kilometer away from Sékou Touré, who has hosted those meetings. So Sékou Touré, president of Guinea at the time, not Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, become very influential into organizing freedom fighters. So the Secret Service, European Secret Service, wanted to kill him. And they managed to kill Amilcar Cabral on 20th January 1973, but the Guineans took and fight back, and only one assassination was done. But they managed to also a very important point of history, they managed to release the puppet that has been informing them about all those meetings. So inside the freedom fighters movement, there were people that were spying on the freedom fighters for the colonialists. Exactly like we have today. We still have those puppets that actually play for America in Africa, you know. They were playing for France, for Portugal, for colonial power within Africa. Their name was Barbosa and Mamadou Touré. Barbosa and Mamadou Touré got liberated from jail of Sékou Touré, taken out of Guinea, right? So the coup could function and they could be put in power while Amilcar Cabral was killed, right? So just to summarize, when you have leadership, where Africa came with leadership, those leaders were killed, right? They had to protect themselves. Usually they managed to protect themselves until a certain point. Kwame Nkrumah managed to protect himself until a certain point. Amilcar Cabral as well. And yes, all those coups are in the DNA of those post-colonial states. Even before they become independent, as I said, they were already coup happening.
Okay. Thank you very much, Comrade Thomas Lissafra. Now, let's move on. In Algeria, last week, from 30th November to 1st December, they organized a conference on the crimes of colonialism in Africa, resulting in the adoption of the Algiers Declaration. The conference aimed to build a unified African position on historical injustice, reparations, and the international recognition of colonialism as a crime against humanity. In line with the AU's 2025 theme, the declaration will be submitted to the African Union Summit in February 2026 for endorsement. Comrade Lugarama, we have been crying here, we've been complaining for many years that these people's world needed to compensate Africa for all the crimes they committed against humanity. But they should not also end there. They should also pay us reparations for what they have been stealing from us for a very long time. This debate now is coming out, and Algeria is championing this cause. I want to hear your 2 cents on this.
Once again, thank you so much, Comrade Speaker. Those of us who try to remember history at its best, Algeria has been the maker of Pan-Africanism. When we still had so many doubting Thomases, Algeria risked granting a man like Madiba Nelson Mandela a passport, because he had been denied one, even by his own home country. Algeria and Algiers as the capital helped not just the agenda of the African National Congress, the fighting wing, their ideological arm, but they also helped other African-related Pan-African organizations, be it in Mozambique,
Even
be it
South
in
Africa,
Angola,
ANC.
be it in South Africa, I've already mentioned with Nelson Mandela. It was
Frelimo in Mozambique.
In Mozambique, yes, mentioned. So it was some sort of a melting pot for the Pan-African activities. I'm therefore not surprised. The only surprise I have is that I was not invited. But I'm not surprised at
But
all.
you've not been. You've been in Congo.
This man is too much, he's traveling too much.
He's been in
We
Congo.
need to give him a twin. Can't we give him a twin?
And I raised my concerns with the ambassador who
Of Algeria.
yes, in Uganda, who promised that that was an error which he thought he could cure, but it never happened. However, we are on the same page because we are following up. That was just a 2 days meeting. A lot of work continues to be done from there. Yes, I agree, Comrade Speaker, that we are actually late to hold the colonial masters, because if you remember again, the colonial masters in America, those who say, who are said to have given up slaves, they were compensated for having lost labor. You can imagine. They lost labor, so they were compensated.
Hey,
The people who, the so-called
the slave masters.
yes.
Yeah.
When these slaves
Who
were rescued,
gave away. They said
they
the
came and
slaves
said they
can
must
go
pay
away.
us.
No, let them be free men. Then the government compensated the slave owners. They said you have lost labor. We
Exactly
hereby-
like expropriation.
we
'Cause
compensate you.
they consider the slave
but
as
but
being furniture.
but the human beings in Africa,
The human beings, even not Africa, human beings who were freed and they became free men,
are not
who-
compensated.
nothing at all. Not even where they came from.
Oh, they got jailed.
Not where they are. Nothing has, and this has been the cry of our comrades, the likes of Malcolm X. It was the cry, and it's still the cry of people like Ruiz Farrakhan, among others.
So that's what they call they call justice.
So
We have compensated you for losing your labor. That we have given you justice.
At the time,
What
they considered
about the
as a
people?
furniture. So in the law, a slave is a furniture. So you are get expropriated your house by the state. You compensated by the state, right? That's the logic. So for them, because they were not humans, they were furniture. You lose your furniture, you get compensated for losing your furniture. That's how deep, like the dehumanization was. It was part of the law. It was part of the economic system.
So you can see, like what my brother has mentioned.
Before you come,
Being referred to chattels, a human being was nothing but a chattel. You know, an equivalent of what he was talking
It's called a
about.
furniture in the
Furniture,
French law.
either furniture,
furniture,
or
like a
table,
wood.
like a table, yeah.
like wood.
like
Yeah.
this one.
Yes.
The same,
So when I lose this table, government compensates me for losing my table.
the slave had the same right
Yeah.
and duty as a table.
But have you even
French law,
forgotten, Comrade Irumba, in the colonial Zimbabwe, there was a land matter which was brought to a colonial court in Harare, and a native, a Zimbabwean native, was suing a white man for having encroached and taken on his land. The ruling that was made by
The white man judge,
a colonialist judge, he said that, but an African is incapable of appreciating the concept of ownership. It is therefore impossible for a native to bring the ownership, a land matter to this honorable court, claiming that he can own land for which it has been encroached upon,
Yes.
and therefore he wants it back. Because the concept of ownership is alien to a black person. Now you see, that is in itself is not something small
Great.
that somebody should. You must take stock of what the colonialist, the now turned imperialist, has been doing to the fellow humankind. The belief that there is such a thing as somebody who is subhuman is what we are dealing with here. And therefore, I don't want to lose track of what your issue is. I will request that you remind me so that I align myself. Algeria,
Yes.
holding
the two-day conference.
Two-day conference in relation with reparations. Yes, I will tell you that the reparations, not just slave trade reparations, but other forms of reparations, economic losses,
Human loss.
indignified, that we are not human beings, being degraded in all manner. all those, the progressive-minded Pan-Africanists, not just from the African continent, but elsewhere, have been having reparations as one of the greatest agendas in this century. We want to ensure that we take it as a consolidated demand that those who participated, because we are not asking for too much. What was happening in Algeria is what the Jews have been asking. It is a criminal offense for you or any other person, for instance, to forget the Holocaust. They wouldn't want you to forget the Holocaust. And for you to talk negative, I don't know what the negative bit of it there is, but for you to sound as if you don't appreciate that so many millions of Jews died, never mind that 3 times the number died in Democratic Republic of Congo under the
King Leopold.
King Leopold,
Over
and,
1 million
and
something.
later on the Belgians.
1.5 million.
No, we are talking about close to 15 million human
15
beings.
million, yes.
And some of them who died in a very horrific manner because their private parts were cut off. You see, somebody can only take away what he's envious of. Because the colonialist didn't have enough size of the manhood, he would only cut off that one of the African simply because he was jealous that his engine was better than otherwise. It was not the private parts, the penises that were cutting rubber. Why on earth would they be cutting the private parts? That shows you how evil some of these people can be. In Algiers, therefore, we were reawakening, and indeed Algeria was again replaying its old textbook role of being the maker of Pan-Africanism. To say, come back here, let us now talk about how the former colonialist, now imperialist, must compensate us. And for me, I want to conclude this by saying that what we should go ahead and say is that to start with, all the debts, the so-called debts, that Africa and other people that suffered the slave trade and all manner of dehumanizing activities by the colonists should be completely done away with. We should not be owing anything to anybody before the reparations are paid. 2, we should also make sure that these reparations, we give a time frame. That if they are not paid within this time frame, then it is the duty of those who suffered those dehumanizing activities of the colonialists to confiscate the assets of the granddaughters and sons of those who practiced dehumanizing activities.
Very good. Thank you very much. You know, Comrade Lisafri, my elder here, Rugarama, brings a very important issue, and it reminds me, you see, right now, Algeria is talking about the history, long time ago, what happened to us, and how they needed to compensate us so that we can live with dignity, like any other. But Comrade Rugarama, Trump recently...
No, but can I say something about that? Can I say something about that?
About Trump?
Algeria.
I'm coming. I wanted to combine it with what Trump is doing of late. Trump, South African is going to parliament in a civil manner to ask that you stole 114 years ago, you killed our people, our relatives. After killing them, you stole their land. But 114 years later, some of that loot, you have not utilized it. You have stolen 100 acres of land from our great-grandparents. You have only used 10 acres. Let us use the law to reclaim the balance. Trump is saying this is by practicing, wait what? The Boers. That
Discrimination. That
Yes.
the blacks are discriminating
The
against
whites.
the whites.
Yes.
So in other words, he's referring to what we would call racial discrimination.
Yes.
Now that is impossible. Just a comment. That is impossible. How? Racial discrimination can only happen in a situation whereby one race is economically more empowered than the other. That, for you to be able to discriminate, you discriminate me on what? Because you must discriminate me on accessibility, access to resources. So how does the weak discriminate the strong
the rich.
on accessing resources?
So this is the argument I was bringing, that Trump is in this 21st century practicing what was practiced those so many centuries ago, but it's still with us in Trump's head, and the African continent is taking it lightly. We are taking it to be a South African issue, because when you go to South Africa, up to now, there is a big part of South Africa, in Africa, where blacks are not supposed to live in.
Yes.
You see in South Africa.
Orania.
Yeah?
It's called Orania.
He even knows. He lives in South Africa. He lived in South Africa.
One of my black friends went there for a night.
So,
One night.
and what happened?
It's
They go there
very
like tourists.
interesting story.
You go there, you run away, you
There
come
were
back.
only one room he could
In
have
South
eaten.
Africa, there
One
is
room.
a place, Orania, where blacks are not supposed to live in this 21st century. Trump is saying nothing about it. But Trump comes and claims that the blacks are segregating the Boers in South Africa by trying to reclaim what the Boers stole from them. And they did not only steal, they killed the owners. They raped their children. Trump is quiet about that. So, this what we are saying, that somebody in those so many decades ago, when they lost the blacks, they went to government and claimed for compensation, and they would take you as a table, as an object. So they compensate you for losing your object called a human being. You see that kind of mindset? It is the same mindset that Trump still has. So as Algeria is fighting for this reparation, please compensate us, we need to first find a way of dealing with the mindset that Trump has. Because Algeria is dealing with the past, but there is the present here. That a man, a president of the entire United States of America, is still practicing what today we claim was inhuman. But he is practicing it very proudly, and the world is clapping. I bring you to discuss Algeria, but have this in perspective.
No, I keep the perspective, but I wanted to take our audience to a very simple walk. Right here, we're in Uganda, we're in Kampala. In Kampala, in Uganda, and in the rest of East Africa, if we take a walk, maybe 1 kilometer best, ne? We will find what? We'll find a school with little Ugandans, young Ugandans inside this school. And you know what? These little young, sorry, my English, young, not little, young Ugandans. You know what they will learn? They will learn that the biggest atomic bomb that has a biggest atomic explosion that has happened in the world was in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That the American bombed the Japanese, and then the Japanese surrendered. You can go to any school here; they will teach you that. That is not true. You know what the truth is? The truth is the biggest atomic bomb ever dropped on a foreign country by a nuclear power was made by France in Algeria. 6 times bigger, 6 times stronger.
France, your country.
France dropped bombs, 3 bombs, in Algeria. The last one was 6 times stronger than Hiroshima and Nagasaki together. So the biggest country that received an atomic bomb, that had to look at the sky and see an atomic bomb falling, they were not Japanese, they were not Americans, they were Algerians. So that is exactly why Alger is hosting those type of conference, because Alger remember those things.
They
Alger
know what
knows,
they're going through.
but he knows that if you go to Uganda and Kampala, and then even in Japan, and even in France, all around the world, you will learn what? Atomic bomb are Americans,
Yes.
and they bomb Japan.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Right? Atomic bomb are not American, they're Congolese. And they bomb what? The biggest bomb that has been dropped in a foreign country was dropped in Africa. It was dropped in Algeria by the French. So it is very important we understand also that historical dynamics. And I wanted our audience to know that. Beyond this idea of an atomic bomb, colonial crime took multiple forms, right? And I think if we have to summarize what type of reparation people want, I would go and argue that my colleague right now has explained already why we need reparation. It is very clear that reparation is a topic that is not even discussed anymore by Pan-Africans. But what type of reparation can we ask? What type of reparation could we get, right? How could that leverage the continent, and how could that leverage our strategic goals, and not just waiting or begging? Because Sankara used to say he doesn't want beggar. We are not beggar. We need a strategic horizon and strategic directions. What are the strategic directions for this reparation, right? First, all artifacts and arts that have been stolen at colonial time need to come back on the continent. 100%. And if a country doesn't have the capacity to afford better building and things like this, it's okay. We can have a regional museum. One museum for all artifacts of East Africa that have been stolen by colonialists at one place, and we get what? We want what? We want bursaries, so the kids in the era, in the region, can afford to go and watch the museum. Even a simple public school can now have access to those artifacts. Because without knowing your history, you know it, Irumba, without knowing your history, you can't build a future. You can't go another direction in the future. So first bring back the artifacts that are stolen, and in case there is no a proper national museum or safe national museum, because you don't want those unsafe museums like the French have, you know, where anyone comes in and stole the jewelry of the king and just leave in 3 minutes. You want solid museums, so we can have regional museums and bursaries for students to go and see it. That's one of the ideas. Now, behind the artifacts, you will tell me there's economics, right? And so what also we want is, my colleague has put it, today, officially, if you look at the papers, Africa has debt to Europe and to America, financial debt, right? All of those debt, they need to be scrapped out immediately. No conversation, nothing, right? And doubled, the very same debt, right? That maybe Guinea or Ukraine own to the IMF. That very same debt now need to be transformed into education bursary, right? What we want is for the generation of Africans of 2025 to be able to learn the best of art, craft, and technology everywhere. Because why? Not because we want them to be nice and nice to us or things like this. No, because Africans owns it. The minerals that are used in the AI revolutions are Africans. The minerals that are used in industrial transformations are Africans, right? So what we want is that we want to leverage the youth. We want them to have bursary paid by those countries, France, Canada, China, whatever, where students learn new skills and like art of the skills type of things, you know, very, very proper skills. Because without that, if we just wait for money, this money, we know what is going to happen. It's going to be lost inside the post-colonial state that those sellout elite has created from the 50s, from the 60s, and now it's going to be like, I give you money, you put it in your pocket, but there's a hole in your pocket, and I take back the money. You know what? You understand what I mean? If you give money to a country like Mali 5 years ago, let's say you say, okay, reparation is $10 million, $100 million, the Mali would have been obliged to use those 100 million to buy weapons from the West in order to protect himself from the rebellion that they have set in place. So we don't want this type of dynamics where they want to re-steal the money or the greedy want the money. What we want is fair situation for our students, where they will be able to compete to anyone around the world, whatever in engineering, whatever in AI, whatever in IT. Those are the type of reparations. Because why is it important to understand that? It's important because colonialism left a structure. He left a structure. He left an economic structure in place. And what we're fighting for is not so much to say, hey, what happened in 1830 was not fair, you should, do something about it. What we say is that, no, we still live with the legacy of those structure that enrich you and impoverish us. So we want that structure to change, and for that, if you said you're sorry for what you've done, it's okay, we accept. But come and help us to dismantle that post-colonial structure that is enslaving our people until 2025.
Thank you very much, Comrade Thomas Lissafre, senior researcher, senior journalist, and recipient of the Pan-African Pyramid Global Award, the class of 20 24.
Can I just add something that is also in the region? Very important, because you see, if we're not strategic, I call for strategy, right? If we're not strategic about those decisions, what will happen is that other people from other conflict will come and play the conflict in Africa. And we have seen this. I've been doing a very interesting investigation this week. We looked at a boat. There's a Russian boat that exploded 19 kilometers away from Dakar in Senegal, right? And we know
Russian boat.
There's a boat that has exploded 19 kilometers
you
from.
You see the Russian boat.
Yeah, it's a Turkish. Let me just restart there. 19 kilometers away from the Senegalese coast, a boat, a tanker full of petrol, got bloated. Right? So everyone feared like there might be some petrol in the oceans or things like this. When we look at the situation, we see a boat being exploded in Senegal, and then we see on the other side Mali telling us that there is no petrol because the colonialists don't want them to have access to petrol, right? So they block the entrance of petrol in Bamako. And what we have probably seen is that this is a repercussion of Russia-Ukraine conflict in Africa. The Russians are coming to help Mali with petrol, because right now there's issue with petrol in Mali. And they're doing it with ghost boats, because Americans refuse that Russia sell any petrol anymore. So they have to do it like backyard and on the corridor and things like this, right? They sold boat to Mali. Mali bought that petrol, but the Ukrainian forces blow the petroleum boats so they can weaken the Russians and their objective in West Africa. Just to understand that, it's important to understand that, because what we see that if we don't turn that dynamics on colonial crime, what we see is the continuity of those crimes happening again and again.
Continuation of the same.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Comrade Thomas Lesafre. Let me come back to Comrade Daniel Garama Karuchiko. Mr. Karuchiko, Venezuela is still up in arms with Donald Trump's government. Donald Trump is saying, I am fighting a drug dealer. That is Maduro. But some analysts see that it's actually not about drug dealing, trafficking. It's about the resources of Venezuela. Venezuela happens to be one of the largest in the world of they host the biggest oil reserves in the world, Venezuela. And Maduro looks to be in very clear conflict with Trump's administration. And so he doesn't want to trade with him. He wants to trade with other people. So then Trump says, if you don't want to trade with me, there is a stooge in your country that I can help take over power. So as we speak, the fact is that Trump wants a regime change in Venezuela. I want to hear your 2 cents on this.
You see, that subject is extremely very disturbing. Comrade Rumba, I want to start off by saying I've had an opportunity.
You've been in Caracas several times.
Was offered to me by the head of the Chivistas team. You know, is what we call the Chivists. Those who believe in the very late president who created the legacy, Hugo Chavez. You remember? Hugo Chavez was the one whom Maduro succeeded. So he created that legacy which Comrade Maduro
is emulating.
Is emulating.
Championing.
And I think so far he's doing very well. Therefore,
to the disappointment of Trump,
to the chagrin of the United States of America. Therefore, in discussing the relationship between United States of America and Venezuela, I call upon my physical experience in Venezuela. When you go through their airport, when you go through their city, when you go through Venezuela is roughly 3.5 to 4 times the size of Uganda. Now that is not including the other. There is some other island which is also part of Venezuela. When we were observing elections were also held in that particular island, and the United States of America didn't want such a thing to happen. The bad blood has not just started between Comrade Maduro and Trump. It started way back, even during the time of Hugo Chavez. You can roughly estimate that Venezuela, which country has is confirmed to possess one of the finest and huge reserves of oil and other related minerals. The bad blood dates about 20 years back. Now, Maduro has not been in power for the 20 years now. It means that therefore it captures the time of Chavez. So the Chavez group that we are talking about come from that angle. United States of America's problem, and Trump in particular, of course Trump, talking about President Trump, we have many things that we can say, because we know his orders, his executive orders, his raid, especially this second term of his, has been littered with nothing but executive orders. Some of them that are not backed up by any sound reasoning, as evidenced by the fact that when he issues it, after 1 week he records it. So that shows you that he has not been very prepared. Probably he wants to play to the gallery and the cameras. We know his activities in Israel. We know what he has done in Gaza Strip. We know what is happening in Iran. We know all the Middle East and the participation of Trump's administration. Of course, we know the grand plan of United States of America in the Middle East and how they created Israel as a satellite state. Now, when you take back the lenses and you look at Venezuela, the drugs, the so-called the drug cartel, Venezuela has not ever been listed as one of the drug dealers, because the list of the global drug dealers is there, and Venezuela does not feature. Question is, when did they start? When you look at what they are doing, they are killing innocent people who are eking out a living in the seas, in the waters, in the Caribbean. These people are from the neighboring countries. Some of them, of course, are from Venezuela. And all that United States of America is trying to, they have now exported the largest carrier, fighter carrier. For them, they say largest, everything is largest. If it is America, it's largest. So they have, in their own words, at least according to CNN, BBC, Sky News, etc., they have taken in the Caribbean, reintroduced in the Caribbean warships. They have introduced all manner of machinery. You know, if you didn't know that, for instance, Puerto Rico is an extension of America. I've been interacting with our brothers and sisters from Puerto Rico. They have now reignited the military base, American military base in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is an extension. It's of United States of America. And the citizens there, it's a colony, hold American passports. They are my colleagues, and we have been planning on how to help them out to overcome that colonialism. So, the truth is that there are no drug cartels in Venezuela. The only crime of Maduro and those who believe in the self-reliance of Venezuela is that this time around, Venezuela, just like Cuba, wants to do what the nationals are interested in. Nationalize all the assets of the country and deal with the best trader when they are into trade. You know, if it is the Chinese companies or the Chinese government, if it is the Russians, they would want to get the best person to do business with for the benefit of the people. The America has always considered the entire Latin America, the Caribbean, as the hemisphere for United States of America. They cannot imagine a new player, power player like China and above all Russia playing in their backyard. They consider Venezuela, which they had created into a satellite state before the emergence of Hugo Chavez and Maduro. They had created it into, carved it as a satellite state where they were siphoning resources. And in one of the interviews where the typical Trump, being what he is, was captured saying that I cannot believe that we are buying oil the way we are doing it expensively, or we are being asked to buy Venezuelan oil. We are supposed to be taking that oil, just taking it. It is
as if it's theirs.
Yes, I have heard that. I saw it with my naked eyes. The ambassador was showing me, and that clip is there. I want to conclude this by saying,
you must be earlier.
Yes, I want to conclude this by saying that what United States of America is grappling with now in the Caribbean and in Venezuela's case is that it is still suffering from the hangover of what one would call a one-man's show. They are used to a unipolar world. After the defeat of Russia, it was only United States of America which thought that history had placed in their hands the destiny of every mankind. They knew that every world, every country on planet Earth would have to play according to the whims and dictates of United States of America. They knew that for them, if they disagreed with you, either you would be eliminated or they would overthrow and destabilize the country
Regime
and
change.
they take over. That's what they think they have to do in Venezuela. I have bad news. Things have changed. The world now is multipolar. There are other interested forces worthy, because Russia now, for the very first time, has established a base and is also telling the United States of America that if you can dare create an influence in my backyard, at least you attempted and you wanted to, in Ukraine, then I also can have Venezuela as, which is in your backyard, and they establish. You remember when they put the missile shield in Cuba at one time, and what the United States of America did? So in other words, they didn't even complain to United Nations, they didn't complain to Security Council, they simply sieged the entire island, and it was resolved that way. I want therefore to say that what we are witnessing in Venezuela, the people of Venezuela are extremely resilient. They know, because they are very conscious, they know what they want, and they are fully behind their people. China has invested billions and billions of money in Venezuela. The interests of other worthy superpowers in Venezuela and the resilience and determination of the people of Venezuela is going to show United States of America that the days of you bulldozing everybody are long since
Just like
gone.
Iran showed them here recently. Iran and Israel. Comrade Safri, in 2 minutes.
Yes. No, you see the prolongation of these conversations. On the opposite of Venezuela, the case right now, there's Niger. Niger has managed to free himself from French imperialism, and it was a similar imperialism that says no. If it's happening in Africa, the French have to have a hand on it. In 2025, 20th of November 2025, is the very first day Niger managed to sell his uranium to whoever he wanted. Before that, he was in a direct contract with the French. So the uranium of Niger has lighted the bulbs and the lights of Paris Eiffel Towers since the 60s, right? And so you see, you have this post-colonial state that is created by the colonial state, where he put his own people on it, and then he put an economic interest, which is, okay, now we are going to use the petrol of Gabon, we are going to use the petrol of Congo, we are going to use the uranium of Niger. And for the very first time, Niger, after a coup d'etat, decided, no, you know what, we're going to sell our uranium to market price, to whoever want to buy it in the market. We're not going to stop selling it to Iran because Americans don't like Iran, or to South Korea because they have a problem with China. It is not our businesses. We are using our resources for our interest. And I think that should help us to finish this show with a good news. That's very good for Nigeria.
Very much. Comrade Thomas Risafri, thank you very much for such a good analysis. Comrade Daniel Garama Karukiko, also thank you so much for your time always. This is the Pan-African Pyramid Debate, and my name is Emperor Andrew Irumba Katusabe, your speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emperor.
Thank you. Africa, don't agonize.
Organize.
Don't agonize.
Organize.
In French?
Ça marche pas en français. It doesn't work so much in French. It doesn't have the thing of the English.
Did you know?
Their languages are very limited. That's why I say
Did
it's
you
not so much.
know that France,
We can say Amanda.
the French says, is such a small thing. When you hear the amount of influence the French have had on the rest of the world, you wonder how really such a small country can bulldoze.
You know it is. When you get nothing,
When we begin dismissing them from so many other countries, you will see. They will come back to their
I will be here. They will find me here.
Free your mind now. Be part of the People's Pan-African Parliament. The Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.